Let's discuss the peers, in other words, the saints, as to their power and where they are. In other words, whether they're living and dead or whatever. We might mention that in Asia, oftentimes the saints are living. In other words, there is either the saint there, descendant, or somebody sitting there on the throne, as it were. But in Africa, often the saints are dead. This could be true in Asia as well, because I have seen places where there isn't a saint around. In other words, the guy is not there at all, but the place is there. And so we'll look at various things. We'll look at how the pillars are used, how medicine is used, and end with some of the power places. This is really the key word here is power, power, power. Think of the song, there is power in the blood. Would you be free from the burden of sin? There is power in the blood. For folk Muslims, there's power in the peers and what they do. You can see shrines all over the place in a place like Pakistan and all through the Indian subcontinent. If you keep your eyes open, if you know what you're looking for. The shrine could be a simple place, or it could be quite elaborate. But you can see it as you drive down the road. Just a narrow one-lane road that is only the concrete, the pavement is one lane, and you have to get off when you meet a vehicle bigger than yourselves, and that's quite a drop off. So you have to keep your eyes on the road, but you can also see stuff on the side of the road too, and you might see some place with all kinds of flags on it. Flags, a tree with flags on it, or bits of cloth. You might see a tomb there covered with green cloth and a copy of the Quran. Green is the cover of Islam. So you'd see that, and there might be a well there or something that supposedly, when the saint stuck a stick in the ground, that out came a tree or water or something. But there is a fellowship among the peers, the followers of the peer. In other words, if you and others, you follow the same peer, you have this brotherhood of sorts. Everybody has a peer. In Pakistan, it's like California, where everyone has a shrink. That was a joke. And then you have the brotherhoods of peer brothers and the peer followers. So there's quite a fellowship there. What exactly can the peer do is the question. What are his qualities? And some would think, well, there are 20 qualities, 20 miracles that a peer could do. And if you were to ask the average guy in the street, the one that goes to the peer, can he actually do 20 miracles? Well, no, not so much, but at least he can do something. And so there are not such great expectations, but basically the peer can act as an intercessor, praying to God for such and such, like Catholics would go through Mary or go through a Saint Jude or something. There is this idea here too of having an intercessor, a go-between. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? To have some blessing through this peer, some influence, because you really can't get anything done unless you have a person of influence in the government or whatever. Some teaching. I think of one particular peer place in Pakistan. It's not too far from the capital, Islamabad, which is an interesting term. Islamabad, the place of Islam, where is a beautiful mosque, one of the largest, most beautiful mosques in the Muslim world. It's absolutely tremendous. Not too far away is the place called Golra Sharif. Sharif always is the name that goes with the peer place. Sharif means noble or something like that. So here there are a couple of peers, and they trace their ancestry way back to make sure that they have a connection with the Prophet Muhammad. There are guys there sitting there who sing qawwalis. We mentioned that before. Qawwalis are praises to the Prophet Muhammad. And the attendance is quite significant. In other words, people are always going there, but at a special time of the year, the Urs, then people go by the tens of thousands. And it's really big. I mean, it is big, and they can feed a lot of people, these two piers. But we'll not go into detail about those particular piers. One is sort of, does the administration, the other guy does the spiritual work. But there are other piers as well. Data Ganj Bakhsh is a pier, a place just outside of, just right next to the famous Badshahi Mosque in Lahore. Badshah means king. And this mosque is famous. It was built during the Mughal Empire, 16th century. By, the Muslims were in charge then. The Muslims were ruling India during the Mughal Empire. And there was a certain amount of peace in India between the Muslims and the Hindus and the Christians. Right next to that mosque is Data Ganj Bakhsh, and the Muslims say that this guy spread Islam in the Indian subcontinent. There is what they call there the door to heaven. I had a friend who did his MA in English, a charming young fellow who passed his grades, passed his MA, they're very stiff exams, and he said that he used to go to that pier on a regular basis to ask for his help and success. And so he says that that's the one that helped me get through my MA in English. Now, as I mentioned before, the Sufis seem to have quite a bit to do with the spread of Islam in the Indian subcontinent. In many places, they were close to the people and they did miracles. Now, the thing about the whole topic here is the quest for power. And it's very much like, Simon in Acts chapter 8, when he saw that there was power. He seemed to make a profession. I don't know what all he did, but I guess apparently his heart wasn't right. And Paul wasn't happy with him. In fact, he gave him a very, very sound rebuke. But old Simon saw that there was power in this particular thing called Christianity, and so he wanted it. He asked for the power. In verse 8 it says that there was great joy in that city, and then it goes on, and after that in verse 9 there was a man by the name of Simon who practiced sorcery. You see, he had the power. But then when somebody else comes in who has greater power through the ministry of Philip and so on, then he wants this power. But I'm sorry I said Paul, but it's Peter, really. Peter who says to him in verse 20, may your money perish with you, because you thought you could buy the gift of God with money. You see, Simon really wanted power. And that's what the peers have, and that's what they want. So they use it. They use it through amulets. And they write amulets and they get money for it. And I mean lots of money. I have a friend in Pakistan whose brother was into this writing of amulets. And he said it's it's a business, and there's a lot of trickery in it. So you do this. Peers might say that, well, if you keep repeating the name of God, this peer gives the name of God's name 100, 200 times, sins for the past 50 years are wiped out. You use something like this against the demon. There are 27 references about jinn in the Quran. A whole chapter is about the jinn, chapter 72. You need protection against them. One of the names of God is Al-Halim, the humble one, or something like that. If you write that on a piece of paper, and put it in a little pouch. You can put it in your soil and you'll have a good crop. That's one of the 99 names of God. So you see, here is the tension between God's will, the predestinated thing that we talked about before, the predeterminism, versus people giving their requests and meeting felt needs. See the tension? You'd almost think that the two never can meet, but they do. And there are contrasts here. Almost you would think that they couldn't live side by side, these different philosophies. But they do, and it's the way the simple people get around this this predeterminism. Illness comes because of hostile forces, so you do everything you possibly can. Pull strings, go to peers, and somehow you manage to get by. Abu Huwaira reported God's messenger as saying, "Do not make your house graveyards. The devil flies from the house in which Surah al-Baqarah, this should be Baqarah, is recited." Muslims translated it, or transmitted it. And that's the second surah in the Quran, the second chapter. And so why do they keep reciting it? Well, they keep reciting it so that you can put the devil on the run. Abu Umama said he heard God's messenger say, "Recite the Quran, for on the day of the resurrection it will come as an intercessor for those who recite it." Recite the two shining ones. Baqarah, that's the second one, and the full, it's not all written here, but I think the other one is number 5. Aisha said that every night, when the Prophet went to his bed, he joined his hands, breathed onto them, reciting into them, "Say he is God one. Say I seek refuge in the Lord of the dawn. Say I seek refuge in the Lord of men." Then he would wipe as much of his body as he could with his hands, beginning with his head, his face, and the front of his body, doing that 3 times. That comes out of Bukhari and Muslim. See? This is the point. I mean, Muhammad was into magic. Muhammad was into this kind of stuff. It isn't that it came in from the outside, but this is what Muhammad did. This was his life. This is what he grew up with, and he never put it aside. Never. Now let's talk a little bit about pilgrim power. How did they get their power? What all is done? Pilgrim power meaning the pilgrimage. We've just referred to this a bit, but a lot of the stuff they do on the pilgrimage is very, it just fits in really well with this popular Islam. The rites, the special clothes, the sacrifices, the head shaving, the running, the kissing of the black stone, stoning of Satan, the Zamzam water. All of these things are very, very popular. They're mystical, and this is done. You know, the hadith says that if you do it right, your former sins are gone. We have to be careful by saying that this is, this isn't Islam. This is really Islam. And that's why it's dangerous to divide them and to say, well, this is not really Islam, it's unorthodox or so on. But let's remember that it's part and parcel of Islam. It's not that it's not a heresy that they live with only, but it's something that is more than that. It was there from the beginning, and Islam has never pushed it aside because it was part of Islam. It was there. The fact of Muhammad's tomb, his tomb in Medina, being the greatest paradigm of saint worship that you can find. Because what happens at that tomb is what they do, Muslims, at the tombs of other saints. And there are tombs upon tomb upon tomb in the Muslim world. There is, for example, there are shrines. I know of a shrine in Jalalabad, as we used to drive from Pakistan into Afghanistan, just across the border, where there is a city called Jalalabad. There is a shrine And what's in the shrine? A hair of Muhammad. A guy went to Mecca, and he came back with the hair. Now, this is the hair of Muhammad. And so they built a shrine. Now, this is not totally uncommon. The hair of Muhammad is enough to build a shrine over. Quite a story behind that in a book written by Christy Wilson. I won't take the time to tell it now. But so the pillars in the seen face of Islam, Shahid, Salah, the Zakat, the Salam, and the Hajj, these are the 5 pillars of Islam. They are what Muslims look to, and this is what Islam means and all that kind of stuff. Well, what about popular Islam? What does it mean? That it really has the same form but different meaning. And this is true of all of them. The creed is used in one way in high Islam, another way in low. The prayer is used one way in high and another in low. Alms in high and low, fast and high and low, pilgrimage high and low. So you see, they fit together, and they live with one another. They're in bed with one another. They'll never get rid of it, I don't think, because it's very much part of Islam. Here is a bit of a detail of what we were just saying. You see, the confession, the function is of course, it means that you affirm being a true Muslim and on and on. But in low Islam, that's how you drive away the evil spirits. The prayer, the form is how you worship God. In his low Islam, that's how you the ablutions is you get rid of the demonic pollution, and you do some other things. Legal alms, that's the responsibility of every Muslim. Here, you could use it as the precaution against the evil eye. Fasting, sign of commitment. Here in low Islam, it's a ritual for dealing with evil and sickness. Pilgrimage, visit the epicenter of the faith. But in low Islam, it's the rituals for dealing with evil, sickness, etc. So you see, same form, but different meanings. Meaning in high Islam and the meaning is low Islam. What about medicine? Well, herb medicine abounds. I mean, it really does abound in every way. And it is the essence of animism. We're not criticizing here herbal medicine, because we know that there is some good in it, and also, but the hakims, these doctors, we can call them quack doctors, they use this stuff, mixing stuff together, and it's very mystical stuff. As they put this in and put this in, and talk about all kinds of things that'll cure anything and everything you can think of. Oftentimes, what they're trying to sell is the idea that it'll give men greater virility. All very folk stuff, very popular. What about the powerful word? Well, here again, the Quran is used as a charm. And surahs, chapters 113 and 114, they are the most important thing in dealing with a curse. In fact, they were given in the context. Someone put a curse against Muhammad, and then these 2 chapters were revealed. The Quran is used as a fetish like you wouldn't believe. It's put on the walls. Not so much that this is, God's word, we're on God's word, but it's put there as a protection. It's put in pouches. It's put in vehicles for protection. It's recited to keep the devil away. Quran cutting means that you seek God's will by going to a practitioner and saying, what should I do in such and such a case? He opens the book randomly, points to a verse, and says, this is God's will. The worst thing that can happen to you, almost, is you can be accused of desecrating the Quran. It's really bibliolatry, really. One of my friends who came to Christ in Pakistan was accused of burning the Quran, and a tremendous story of his conversion, how he came to Christ. He had a dream and one thing and another. But then the Muslims put a case against him. They said he burned the Quran. He finally got out of prison because it didn't, just a miracle of God. But you see, people are very, very, they can become incensed, inflamed when they think that someone, particularly someone who may not be a Muslim, but not only, because Muslims themselves have gotten into very hot water, even killed, because of an accident, burning the Quran or dropping the Quran in a ditch or something like that. What about powerful places? Here's where we end. There are safe places and dangerous places. The safe places are, places that are ordinary, just an ordinary place. But we'll talk more about dangerous places like marshes, wells, rivers, garbage dumps, or toilets, better known as latrines. And so, in a place like that, a dangerous place, in other words, inhabited by jinns, you have to be protected. And one of the ways you're protected is by saying Bismillah. Bismillah means the name of God. Incidentally, when a man has sexual intercourse with his wife, he's supposed to say Bismillah, lest the child or the offspring become a devil. Talk about folk practice. Talk about fear of evil spirits. Talk about popular Islam. In the Badshahi Mosque in Lahore that I've mentioned before, this famous symbol of Orthodox Islam, there in the beautiful city of Lahore, which is called the heart of the Punjab. In the bottom floor, of course, is the assembly where you say your prayers. But if you walk up the stairs, what do you think you see? Behind a glass window, albeit the glass is dirty, what do you think you see back behind there? 27 relics of the Prophet Muhammad and his close relatives, including his underwear. Can you imagine? Popular Islam right next door. In fact, part of that mosque. You see how close they are together? How can you separate them? You cannot.